by Dr. Rita Pratap, former head of the Department, Drawing and Painting, University of Rajasthan, Jaipur. Module 32, Painters in the Western Manner. In the 16th century, Japan first learned about European art through traders and missionaries. Catholic pictures were copied, Western perspective, convincing shadows, Western realism was adopted by painters. In expensive woodblock prints showing Dutch and Chinese visitors engaged in daily activities, views of the ships, their curious cargo such as elephants and camels were subjects painted. Among the Western style painters, Odano Naotake, Shiba Koken and Kawahare Kiga were popular. In the 16th century, Japan first learned about European art through traders and missionaries. Catholic pictures were skillfully copied. For example, an anonymous Japanese painter painted the portrait of Saint Francis Xavier. And a few other European paintings and engravings inspired large decorative screens by artists of the Nambian school. An anonymous Japanese painter painted the Battle of Lepanto, dated 1571. This is a screen painting and at present in the Murayama collection, Mikage, Japan. The Namban movement practically ceased when contact with Europe was broken in 1640. Nevertheless, Western books on figure drawing and perspective began to trickle into Japan. Murayama Okyo makes an attempt to give his clothed figure an anatomical foundation. His page from a sketchbook depicts street scene, while the landscape prints of Hokusai and Hiroshige reveal a knowledge of Western perspective. In some of Hiroshige's prints, there are even convincing shadows. An example can be quoted of his color wood art depicting Saruwaka Street in Edo. Before the proscription of Christianity, some Japanese artists had experimented with the techniques of chiaroscuro and scientific perspective. They had also helped to satisfy the curiosity about the appearance and customs of Europeans by painting large screen compositions, known as pictures of the southern barbarians, Namban Zoo. Because Portuguese traders were thought to come from the south. These highlighted the arrival of huge black Portuguese ships and processions of exotic Portuguese merchants, sailors and Jesuit monks through streets crowded with curious Japanese onlookers. For the most part, they were painted in Kyoto by Kano and Tosa artists based on pictorial models rather than the first-hand observation. The production of such scenes ceased around 1639, when the country was officially closed to the Portuguese and foreign subject matter was proscribed. The government's seclusion policy intensified the craving for knowledge about the world beyond Japanese shores, and following the loosening of strictures on foreign imports in the 8th century, pictures of foreigners enjoyed renewed popularity, especially in Nagasaki. To cater to the growing number of visitors to the port, enterprising publishers began to issue inexpensive woodblock prints showing Dutch and Chinese visitors engaged in daily activities. Views of the ships and of the curious cargo, such as elephants and camels, they brought to Japan. Foreign women who were officially barred from residing in Deshima were specially popular subjects. An example can be quoted of a Dutch woman with a parrot. It is a woodblock print and at present in the British Museum, London, and painted by an anonymous painter. The beauty represented here may be the young wife of an artist who accompanied von Siebold to Japan, but upon arrival was ordered by the government to return home. Because of their exotic subject matter, these prints, while less sophisticated artistically and technically than their counterparts in Edo and Osaka, enjoyed wide popularity. Most were produced by Yamato, the most prominent Nagasaki publishing house. The government did not view Dutch studies as inherently threatening and indeed respected European pictorial techniques for their practical rather than their aesthetic potential. Many scholar bureaucrats saw their study of European art as part of an investigation of the nature of the physical world that was encouraged and sanctioned by Confucianism. This pragmatic outlook animated the enquiries of Rangaku scholars such as Hiraga Gennai. Although he was a painter of only modest talent, this writer, naturalist, and scholar was a seminal figure in the promotion of Western art. Born into a low-ranking samurai family on the island of Shikoku, he was sent in 1752 by his lord to study herbal medicine in Nagasaki. During his stay there and subsequent travels around the country, he helped to establish a network of physicians and scholars who met periodically to study and discuss Chinese and Western scientific materials. In the woodblock printed book, Treatment of a Patient with Hiraga Gennai's Static Electricity Device, Hiraga Gennai built several devices for generating static electricity following Dutch models. These machines were used to treat various medical disorders. Gennai also introduced members of his circle to Western pictorial techniques and materials and experimented personally in oil painting and copper plate engraving. He found an enthusiastic audience for these new modes of visual expression in the remote northern reaches of Honshu. Inspired by Gennai, feudal lord of Akita, Satake Shozan developed a genre painting that combined the Western techniques of linear perspective and chiaroscuro with the decorative realism of the Nagasaki school. Many compositions by members of what came to be called the Akita school feature large birds against a distant landscape similar to the work of the So Shishiki or themes of Dutch inspiration. Odano Naotake was one of the most talented and original of the Western style artists to emerge from the Akita circle. Born in Akita to a samurai family that served as retainers to the Satake, he was already versed in the styles of the Kano school and the bird and flower tradition of Shen Quan when he met Gennai. Because of his natural artistic talent, Natoke was sent to Edo to live with and receive instruction from Gennai between 1773 and 1777, and again in 1778 and 1779. During this period, he may have also studied with So Shishiki, whether or not he met Shiba Koken, who shared his intellectual and artistic interests, is not clear. During a period of great cultural efflorescence, exposed him to a wide range of native, Chinese and Western influences, which he assimilated and synthesized with unusual success in his work. Odano no Take hanging scroll, Shinobazu Pond, in the middle of which lies an island with a shrine devoted to Benzeatin, the goddess of good fortune, was a famous Edo landmark. In this view, however, the distant shadowy shrine is subordinated to the crispy, delineated and brightly colored urn of peonies in the foreground. Though lacking the rigorous intellectual training in the Rangaku scholars with whom he associated, Shiba Kokun also saw Western empiricism as an agent of modernization. Because he was an effective self-promoter and popularized, his views gained wide circulation among the general public. Kokun began his career as a forger of Haranobu's painting and prints at a time when the artist was unrivaled in popularity in Edo. Kokun's talent and intellectual curiosity eventually led him to Gennai and Shishiki, with whom he began experimenting in the techniques of copperplate engravings and oil paintings. In 1788, after a long period of personal study and occasional meetings with Dutch traders during their annual visits to Edo, he was finally able to visit Nagasaki. He was unable, as he had hoped, to find a Western artist with whom to study, but his experiences there confirmed his conviction of superiority of European pictorial techniques. While acknowledging the importance traditionally attributed to Sino-Japanese painting to evoking the essence or spirit of a subject rather than merely its outward form, he was deeply impressed by the potential of Western pictorial techniques to accomplish both these goals. Kokun financed his travels by painting, demonstrations and displays of curiosities such as magnifying glass, camera, obscura and copperplate engravings of his own manufacture. While he was in Osaka, he even executed for Kenkedo a pen and ink drawing, now lost, of Nagasaki harbor. His views of scenic sites in Edo and elsewhere clearly reveal his mastery of the techniques of engraving and optical illusion. His forays into the realm of oil painting ranged in subject from birds and flowers and scenes of European craftsmen to landscapes. His skill as a painter combined with his use of a mixture of oil, wax, egg white and chalk to emulate the glistering surface of a European oil painting and achieve other novel effects, made him widely successful and achieve other novel effects, made him widely successful and influential among Edo artists, with whom he shared a fascination with Mount Fuji, are specially indebted to Kokan's innovations. The illustration of Shiba Koken shows 7-league beach at Kamakura. In the painting, celebrated scenic spot in Kamakura is depicted. Kokan drew on his understanding of Western pictorial techniques to convey the spatial relationship between the broad, curvy liner beach with waves breaking at the shoreline in the foreground and Mount Fuji rising in the far distance. In keeping with his admiration of the West, he even inscribed his painting in Roman script. Many artists lived or traveled to Nagasaki in the hope of finding a Chinese or European master. But Kawahara Kigia was among the few to enjoy a long and close relationship with an enlightened European mentor. Born into a family of professional Nagasaki painters and printmakers, Kigia was already an experienced artist when he met Dr. Philip Franz von Siebold, a physician to the Dutch on Decima from 1823 until 1829. Recognizing his talent, von Siebold employed him to make accurate drawings of Japanese flora and fauna, people, customs, and topography. Many of the resulting works are of great ethnographic interest since they record aspects of Japanese culture, including the lives and customs of the Ainu and the ethnic minorities, of which there are few comparable pictorial records. Kawahara Kiga's painting, Korean Merchant, is dated 1823. It is a leaf from an album, ink and colors on paper, and at present in the National Museum of Ethnology, London. This realistic portrait testifies to Kigia's acute powers of observation and technical skill. The artist has used his brush with the precision of draftsmanship to give the figure a convincing sense of volumetric form. The delineation of face with its submissively downcast eyes reveals a psychological insight that elevates the work beyond the realm of ethnological record. Von Siebold had wide-ranging interests in the fields of medicine, natural history, language, and ethnology. And while in Japan, he devoted himself to the collecting of Japanese documents and artifacts, which he planned to display to the public on his return to Europe. His museum and his monumental Nippon, the first major scholarly study of Japan in a Western language, were instrumental in opening European eyes to the qualities of Japanese art. Together, the requisite material, he cultivated friendships with many scholars and artists. In 1829, von Siebold was forced to leave Japan after Kigia was accused of passing classified maps to him. Von Siebold's departure apparently also signaled the end of Kagya's artistic career, since little is known of him thereafter. Since the Meiji Restoration of 1868, every school of Western art has been promptly and eagerly imitated in Japan. Yamamoto Kane's early color woodcuts, notably Breton Girl, dated 1980 and at present in the Academy of Arts, Honolulu, Hawaii. Set the printmakers free from their bondage to tradition and pointed the way to new naturalism. At about the same time, Shimomura Kazan fused Western realism with old themes and techniques of Japanese painting, as in a screen depicting traditional character from a no play, The Blind Boy. But in 1957, Azichi Yumetero was most successful in creating an original art up to date and yet essentially Japanese. His woodblock prints, Bird in Safe Hands, is a good example. Today, this print is in the collection of James A. Michener, Academy of Arts, Honolulu, Hawaii.